Hey, I'm Tommy Colletti. I'm from the Music Zoo in New York. I'm here at NAMM 2010. I'm with the legendary Grover Jackson. Basically, how did it start? I mean, did you start as a guitar player originally, and then it sort of morphed?
Well, my dad, I grew up in East Tennessee. My dad was a custom furniture maker. So from my earliest memories are of sitting on the stairs of the house we lived in, and my dad's shop was downstairs, and watching my dad make furniture. So I kind of grew up around the whole woodworking thing. And then since I am, I don't know, 1,000 years old or something, I grew up in the 60s, and the whole English Revolution, and I got involved in playing guitar, and it always seemed like I was the guy that was fixing everybody else's guitar, since I had some mechanical experience and woodworking experience. So, and when I first came to California in the early 70s, I came as a guitar player. I slept on floors and ate peanut butter when I was lucky, Kool-Aid, blah, blah, blah. And then that, through a long set of circumstances, too long to go through today, I ended up working with Wayne Charvel in his little repair shop. From there, I ended up buying Charvel Guitar Repair and turning it into Jackson Charvel.
Unbelievable. And this was like late 70s, mid 70s.
I began working with Wayne in late 76 and bought the company on November 10, 1978.
And at that point, I had heard stories about, was it like Richie Blackmore and Billy Gibbons and guys like that were already coming into the shop?
Blackmore wasn't. I had a relationship with a guy that worked for Richie, a New Yorker. You may even know him. I never knew his real name. He always went by Ox, but he later worked for Gary Moore. You mentioned Gary Moore, and that's actually how I met Gary, was through this New Yorker, Bronx guy with heavy accent, who had worked for Blackmore and then had started working for Gary Moore, and he called me up and said, hey, I got this English guitar player over here with me in L.A., and he wants to get a couple of guitars. And I said, yeah, who's it? And he says, Gary Moore. And I said, I don't know Gary Moore. Who's Gary Moore? I don't care. And so he comes out, and this is when Gary was on Jet Records, and Sharon Osbourne's dad's record label, and that's when Gary did the GForce record. Right. Which is a great record.
I love that record.
That's a great record. But Gary came out, and I didn't know, and it was really funny, without any disrespect at all. I mean, Gary had this like rockabilly hairdo, if you can imagine Gary Moore with a rockabilly hairdo, and I have a picture to prove it, by the way. So I made him a couple of guitars, and they were rehearsing to do the GForce record in Frank Zappa's old rehearsal studio on Sunset. Herb Cohen's management office had a rehearsal facility. That's where Frank Zappa rehearsed, and that's where Gary, with Eddie Kramer producing, was preparing the material for the GForce record. And I'm off on a rant, so just bear with me. So I go in. This is one of my funniest early Gary Moore stories. Is I go in with a guitar, and they're full-blown rehearsal and 200-watt Marshall stacks, and Gary's cranking away, and he stops the rehearsal, right? Everybody stops, and he says, is that the guitar? And I went, yeah. It was a red metal flake guitar, and so I go over to the stage and take it out of the case and hand it to Gary, and he says, oh, that's great. Hands it to Ox and says, change the strings. And I'm kind of like, I didn't want to be rude or out of place, but I just put strings on the guitar an hour before. So they go back to rehearsal, and Ox and I go over to the tool chest. He pulls out 12 to 56.
Like a set of acoustic strings almost, right?
Yeah, and so I'm thinking, okay, somebody's pulling my leg. This is a joke, right? Or I'm thinking in the back of my head, oh, I didn't know Gary played slide. Oh, maybe I didn't have any idea he was going to use this as a slide guitar. So Ox changes the strings and goes through the whole process, and 30 minutes later we get it all done and carry the guitar back over to the stage. Rehearsal stops. Gary takes the guitar, plugs it into the two 100-watt Marshalls, and does everything that Gary Moore does. Woo, woo, woo. I mean, vibrato, rapid fire. And I'm standing there with my chin hanging down. And Gary finally comes over and says, wow, I really love the guitar. And I'm speechless, but I finally managed to get out, how in the hell did you do that? And he goes, what? I said, with 12 to 56? He says, where I grew up, that's all we could get. So that's what we learned to play.
Could you imagine?
Oh,
I want to thank Grover Jackson for being here and talking with us today. What's today? January 16th, 2010, here at the NAMM Show. Thanks, buddy. I appreciate it.
well, thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
man.
you. And thank you for being a great friend.
Yeah, man. You too.